Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everybody is doing good this afternoon. Some great sessions earlier. I'm thrilled to have you join today for an insightful session on how organizations can break silos by aligning HCP and DTC engagement, driving better RX and patient outcomes in the process. I have the pleasure of hosting three great industry experts who will share insights and experiences on this topic. So let's do a quick round of introductions before diving in. So let's bring the panel members up. So first, join me in welcoming Brian Cantwell. Brian's no stranger in the world of digital transformation. Good to have you, Brian.
Great to be here, Jay. Thank you.
Awesome. Brian is the Vice President of Digital Strategy and Operation at Bayer, and he'll speak a little bit more about that. Next up, Drew Isaacs is with us today. Good to have you here, sir.
Thanks, great to be here.
Yeah, Drew joins us from Novartis. He serves as the Vice President and Head of Marketing Operations there. And finally, Anand Ramachandran. Anand is the Director and Head of Commercial Marketing Technology at Regeneron. So welcome, Anand.
Great to be here.
Awesome. So let me get set the context. While HCP and consumer marketing teams and strategies have traditionally operated within their own areas, life sciences organizations, after there's such a merge of sales and marketing efforts, omnichannel, next best action, and all of these efforts going on, organizations are increasingly coming to realization that there may be a better and more effective way to function HCP and DTC customer teams. So drive engagement, outcomes for both from themselves and for their customers. So the question is, can aligning the HCP and DTC engagement efforts simplify the process and consolidate marketing effectiveness? Or is it practical, right? So now with that said, any strategic alignment requires serious planning and integration, from addressing privacy, regulatory concerns, reworking the team dynamics, or culture, having the right marketing technology in place, agency consolidation, and there's a whole list of things that have to be considered in that. So with that, let me just bring you guys in and let's get started. So let's start from the bottom up and talk about how life sciences organization can effectively break down any internal silos. And I say any because some organizations may not have those, right? So any of those silos and promote collaboration among the HCP and patient marketing teams. So Brian, I'll toss this first one to you. Are there any specific strategies that you think would help start these conversations, set structure and foundations in place?
Yeah, Jay, I mean, I think it's a really exciting topic. It's an area that my team's pretty focused on. But first and foremost, I think to align those efforts and those teams, you have to start with the objective. Why do you want to align those forces? And I think the way I think about it, I think there's two key objectives. There's a set of external objectives, which are your customer-facing objectives. And I'll just come back to the age-old cliche of we want to deliver the most relevant, impactful message to the right person at the right time through the right channel, right? And I think that's the external objective of aligning these marketing efforts, right? And then maybe a little later we can talk about the internal objective. I think there could be internal objectives around delivering operational excellence, right? Having common platforms, processes, standards to ensure the quality of that customer engagement. We can talk about maybe that a little later. Let me come back to the external objective, which is really the paramount objective, which is we want to deliver a great experience for our customers. We want to deliver the right message to the right person at the right time through the right channel. And I think some of the key strategies there, I think that the right message is all about your content strategy. So are you enabling your customers, right? Are you enabling the patient or consumer and the healthcare professional to be speaking the same language when they're in the same place together, right? So, and that requires a level of strategic alignment on your content, right? You have to be saying things to a healthcare professional that are going to resonate in their language, but then also allow them to kind of make the connection when they're in front of a patient. And you have to prime the patient with the right sorts of messages, the right sorts of content that's going to resonate with them, but then they're also prepared to share with a healthcare professional. So I think content strategy is key to delivering against that aligned objective. I think if we then go to kind of the right person in the right time, that's a huge area that my team gets involved with, because when we talk about how do we stitch together the signals that say this is the right person at the right time, whether it's the patient or consumer, or whether it's the healthcare professional. And there's a lot of really exciting and privacy safe ways to identify that a patient has been interacting with some of your marketing material, that a patient is then seeing a healthcare professional and talking about their disease or disease progression or treatment options, and to use that information to be incredibly timely with when you then deploy healthcare professional facing tactics, whether that be alerts to your field and guiding your sales force to be able to have a productive conversation, or whether that's through digital means, right? And sending kind of the right email at the right time, or amping up your media at the right time. So I think that those are the pieces where I see a lot of strategic alignment across your patient marketing and your healthcare professional marketing. I think channels, there's less alignment here, and it's more just understanding that healthcare professionals are humans and consumers and patients too, right? They use the same channel that we all use. So when it comes to channel, it's less about aligning the effort and more just about understanding that you can reach a healthcare professional through your consumer marketing channels, and you should be aware and prepared for that. We had a really interesting example just come up in the last week, where we had a healthcare professional see one of our TV advertisements, and they saw the TV advertisement. They went to our website, they filled out the request a rep feature, right? And that led to a really productive conversation between our field and that healthcare professional. Now that advertisement from a TV perspective was meant for a consumer or a patient, but in this case, it was highly effective at engaging a healthcare professional with a great conversation. So those are some of my initial thoughts on how to bring that alignment together.
Yeah, no, excellent. So Drew, Brian mentioned privacy and safe way to engage, right? So HCP and patient marketing teams, they both separately have figured out what applies where. But could you talk us through what measures and best practice companies can and must put in place to ensure privacy and regulatory compliance when we are talking about field alerts or claims data or anything like that can be used in this regard? So what are your thoughts on that front?
That's a great question. It could take hours to have those conversations, but the top line, right, is that many organizations are moving from a handful of channels to over 20 channels now where we're sending out information. And at the same time, what we're also moving from is sort of static assets per channel that you sort of create once and you put through a review and approval process, and it's done, to that of personalization. And then when we talk about personalization, that requires a movement towards modularization and taking assets and then decomposing them or creating components of assets. So think about if you have a puzzle box with 500 pieces, and those include everything from your core claims to your claim statements to your segmentation, it could be 500 pieces, and just think about the possible permeations. So that's a real challenge to craft a process to capture the business rules to ensure the compliance. It's also critical to have a process that encompasses something like upstream a triage document that clearly delineates who needs to see what and which assets, what combinations are approved or allowable, right? Because just because you can do it doesn't mean it's allowable, and just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. And then consider having risk stratified review lanes, right, to optimize the time for reviewers to look at these things. So it's creating that combination of processes and content and metadata matrices with those business rules, and then having processes in place that can address it. And then lastly, a lot of training.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. So just switching a little bit on the technology architecture side. So Anand, I'll pose this question to you. Architecting and implementing these MarTech build-outs, nothing new to you in this complex world. Many companies have created very robust ecosystems on the HCP side, right? So the NBA, as I mentioned, the NBA, business engines, other pieces that kind of looks at that much more robust way, because I think we have more data, I guess, right? So the HCP side, what can companies learn? What would you share your insights on how companies can harness those current capabilities and the new marketing technologies such as AI, ML, and their like channel level capabilities that they have built, like marketing automation, consent management system. So keeping all of that like current and new, how do you see some of those things can be now used to support as the DTC marketers have their needs, and those needs have to be met? So how do you see technology helping and MarTech helping those marketing teams in what they need?
Great question, Jay. As you know, there are so many different capabilities in the market now. And there's a lot of pressure for marketing teams to kind of leverage them because the customer has moved to so many different channels. From a Regeneron perspective, we have invested heavily in kind of omni-channel technology, and everything really starts with data. It's fundamentally important for us to ensure that we have high quality data that's coming in, that's consolidated and validated so that it can actually be used. On top of the data comes in the technology and the architecture aspect of things to say, hey, how do we reach our customers across multiple different channels? And AI, ML being one tool in that mix, right? So number one, the goal is to make sure that we fundamentally are able to deliver well on key capabilities delivering to the customer from an architecture perspective. The second part of it is leveraging advanced analytics tools like AI, ML. Some of them are already built in within key players like Salesforce. They come out of the box with the AI and ML tools that enable you to look at content performance, all that good stuff. But the most critical area that we are looking at is trying to stratify and look at customer data to say, hey, where does a particular HCP fall from a segmentation perspective? We are using advanced analytics techniques to say, hey, can we create microsegments? What's the channel affinity? What frequency do we need to reach our customer at the right moment at the right time? There is also on the front end, I think Drew touched on it, with modular content, there's an opportunity to do content review and risk mitigation of content using advanced analytics tools. And the last thing I would say is around, front-end HCP questions. How do you handle questions? Everyone knows about the traditional, prepackaged chatbot thing, but now with ChatGPT, there's an opportunity to train the ChatGPT engine on approved content so that there could be much more easier and meaningful questions answered to the HCP. So those are some of the things that I would say.
Very good. No, thank you for that. Anybody else has any comments on that? On the technology aspect of it, MarTech side of things?
I mean, I think, Jay, I guess maybe just a comment, kind of coming back to the external and internal objectives, right? I think that from an internal objective perspective, being able to enable the most cost-effective and high quality and obviously compliant marketing operations processes and digital operations processes is crucial. So a common technology stack can help you with that, right? Like having separate technology stacks for consumer marketing and healthcare professional marketing is more often than not going to be a waste of money and a waste of time and a waste of process. So I think that certainly some of the things we've been focusing on is we've been trying to build out an in-house model, and that's true in paid media, as well as it's true from an owned channel and a marketing automation and web technology perspective. So I think it's been a huge focus for us as we've built out our in-house media team to enable a common advertising technology stack where, you know, our ad tech, whether it's our ad server or the DSPs that we partner with, or our ad blocking software or the like, right, to make sure that those capabilities are in place and able to support healthcare professional and consumer or patient marketing. And there's obviously some nuances and configurations and settings that need to be adjusted depending on the campaign and the audience. But having the economy of scale to have a robust technology stack across both audience groups, I think is crucial to operating in a cost-effective model.
Yeah, can I just add to that? I think that maybe that's one of the big elephants in the room, that I don't know of any organization that has one technology stack for everything. We all go through those challenges. And I think, you know, how do you then create a content and metadata matrices that is fit for purpose across all your different channels? That's a huge challenge. And then let alone just the integration, but getting the right type of information, or hoping, right, that your platform A can ingest the same type of information or put it out as platform B. Those are huge challenges within the organizations, and let alone that you have different parts of an organization that may, let's say, be your patient support services to market access to your med ed, and what platforms are they using, and is there a common taxonomy? So those are all big challenges for us.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that. So just Drew, I'll stay with you for a sec. How can organization enhance the quality of their target audience and utilize the data-driven insights to develop those engagement strategies? Is there a play for EHR claims data? Is that something that is a typical that all organizations are doing in your experience?
Well, I believe that's part of, or one piece of the answer, right, for data, for being informed. But I would say that maybe it just starts with having more of a common business planning process, where everything's sort of linked back to the strategic imperatives. And a lot of organizations are moving away from certain individual types of KPIs and metrics to that were sort of driven by personalization to now what is the customer experience we're trying to achieve. So I think that when the business planning process is aligned around achieving a certain customer experience, then that will drive your data, your content requirements, and then your metrics associated with that data. Yeah.
So another way I've put it, and Brian maybe, or anybody. So in EHR world, for example, you can communicate with the HCP at the time moment of diagnosis, or them writing the prescription as the prescription moves over to electronically. Some of the DTC marketers buy media that within EHR to promote their availability of their copay card, for example. So do you think those teams on HCP side, because there's an HCP aspect, and HCP is the one who has to kind of attach that with the electronic prescription for that matter, are those teams sitting down together and coming up with those strategies, or you think there's still DTC team working with their media company coming up with the copay card distribution as a tactic, and HCP side looking at it from an HCP messaging? Are they kind of connecting these dots?
I mean, I could speak about it a little bit from what I witness in my organization, which is they have to be sitting down together and having those integrated conversations. And, fortunately, we've taken steps to consolidate the number of partners in place, right? I mean, through taking all the media planning and buying in-house, the internal team here is having those conversations around what some of those partner opportunities are and the like. And then we've got we're supporting the brand teams in an integrated way from a digital strategy and campaign planning perspective. So absolutely, those conversations are happening in an integrated fashion. I would even maybe I'd broaden it from your EHR example, Jay, and I'll talk maybe more about the opportunity with the data that's out there from a lab or diagnostic testing perspective. Mm-hmm. There's been some great work done with some of our brand teams around both healthcare professional and consumer and patient marketing at the table, talking about how do we take advantage of some of these data sets that are out there, where the data sets can really give us that insight that there is a relevant patient talking to a specific healthcare professional, and now is the time to really have the conversation and deliver the content that shows why one of our particular products is potentially appropriate at that point in time. So I think that taking advantage of that, if you talk about kind of audience quality, right? Like there is no higher audience quality from a patient perspective than someone who is, in the midst of being diagnosed or considering a treatment option. And there's no higher quality from a healthcare professional perspective than the healthcare professional that is literally, in the midst of having a conversation and developing a treatment plan for a potential patient. So having some of that insight, whether it's, lab alert data, diagnostic testing data, or in other cases, even having data from certain privacy safe third parties where the data is that someone's been exposed to some of our patient marketing and is speaking to a healthcare professional that is relevant to one of our brands. Those insights are hugely valuable, and increasingly we are letting those insights drive campaign activation, as opposed to the old school approach of we're just going to have our target list and send everything to everybody at the same time.
Great. Thank you. So just expanding on that, Anand, on the data front, and I know you mentioned a little bit, Brian's mentioning it, so it's true, importance of data. From your technical standpoint, what are your thoughts when you have all of these sets of data that companies are buying from a utilization standpoint? Then how do you consolidate all of that and drive those insights that can then help the DTC and HCP teams? How do you see that playing out from that standpoint?
So I just want to add to what Brian was saying earlier. At Regeneron, in order to make that engagement with the HCP, we leverage clinical trials data to enable our field force. So we actually built an app that kind of identifies the patient population and the cohorts. So it's very, very clear, so the messaging can be clear to the HCP about how our product fits into their patient profile. So that was a great win for our field force as we launched our product. From a data perspective, as you rightly mentioned, Jay, there are multiple data sources to the team's purchase. There are syndicated data sources, of course, and there is also own data where we collect the data. So that is one of the biggest challenges that we have in terms of ensuring that, number one, utilization of that data and the value generated from it. From a stakeholder perspective, one of the key stakeholders are our insights and analytics team. So they are kind of the voice of that data to the brand. So anything related to deep customer insight, we need to do, as a technology team, we need to be able to prepare the data across our data lake into what in that Regeneron we have a data warehousing platform that enables deep insight from our insights analytics team to be able to identify key nuggets of information that help provide the brand, be it related to a particular campaign that they're trying to run, a journey that they're trying to run, valuable information so that they can kind of design their campaigns the right way. We also leverage that data set for advanced analytics capabilities so that we talk about segmentation, but beyond that, we also drive that data to help us to next best action so the field force can get the right suggestions and kind of drive that engagement through with the HCP. So multiple different ways to kind of manage the data, but it is a challenge. We also have tools like quality tools and data governance tools that help the insights and analytics teams to be able to understand the quality of data, and also in terms of if they want to use that data set with another data set, merging those data sets are easier using our governance tool. Okay, so multiple ways to kind of manage data.
Great, thank you. So Brian, coming back to you for a sec. So as we kind of explore some companies going through this transition, they have very solid HCP operations and field sales, and that side is pretty good place. How do you see these the transition from isolated campaign hubs to more companies trying to navigate? And you guys have done a pretty good job on that. So how do you see others can learn from it as they shift while maintaining the adherence and standards and the compliance of it all? So do you see any? What do you see there?
Yeah, so I think it's certainly the journey we've been on over the last 3 or so years here. It certainly had its challenges and its growing pains because you're changing the way that our marketers work with their various partners, right? Things that maybe historically they worked with an agency to do, they now are working with an internal team to do. And before it was maybe just kind of they had an agency at their beck and call, and then the agency was maintaining some of that data, and the agency was using some of their own platforms, and so it's just a different mindset and approach. I think the key is to anchor everyone back to the end benefits that were the benefits you hope to achieve, and then hold yourself accountable as you go through actually driving the transformation and putting the capabilities in place, showing that you are actually making progress against the things you said you were going to measure yourself against. So, I'd say that if some of your objectives are cost savings, first of all, lay out a really compelling case, right? Like, we're all in very budget constrained environments, right? Like you hear from very few colleagues across the industry that say, "Oh, my budget went way up this year. It was awesome." Right? Everyone's kind of trying to do more with less constantly. And the good news is we've got approaches, methods, capabilities that allow us to be far more cost effective today than years ago. So I would say, coming back to that and saying, look, you're going to be able to make your marketing investment dollars go that much further. In some cases with some of the capabilities we put in place, whether it's in-house creative services, or whether it's the in-house media model, or whether it's more of a centralized marketing automation capability, right? We're delivering things that in many cases less than half the cost of an external agency partner, which is huge for a brand, right? If you can take $1 from basically an agency fee and put it into working tactics, working media, something that has a proven return on investment, right? That is dollars to your top and your bottom line. So I would say, really keeping the end objective and holding yourself accountable with the measurement. And that's what we've seen here as we've taken, our digital marketing tactics in terms of their contribution to impactable sales has gone from, somewhere in the teens to well upwards of 30%, and for some of our brands, even over 50% of our impactable sales are coming from our digital marketing tactics at this point. And that's not just being driven by increased investment levels in digital. It's being driven. We're also seeing higher ROIs on each one of those tactics. So really, I think keep your eye on the prize, hold yourself accountable, and then share the results. And when the results are that good, you find that the change becomes that much easier as you get more and more stakeholders bought in and saying, yeah, those are exactly the results we want to be achieving.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah,
so, yeah, please.
I was just going to add a couple things to that, right? I like to say organizational structure dictates behavior. And I'd say you have to take a look at your organization. Data is not the cure for everything. It's really the process and your plan. If you've got three main key pillars, what behavior you want to change, what experience you want to have to achieve that behavioral change, then what is your integrated plan? And as Brian and so forth was mentioning before, we've got to get away from having agencies going to the agencies with a bucket of money and say, hey, what's the plan? It's what is that integrated plan? And do you have the right type of customer experience planners or SMEs, subject matter experts in your organization that can help pull together that entire integrated plan, and then determine what data do you need to measure so that you're achieving that plan, not the other way around. What data do I have that I could look to see, what arrow can I pull out of here to help? It's what is my integrated plan, and then what do I need to achieve that plan?
Yeah, no, that's a great radical idea, but no, that's how it's supposed to be, the right way. So what there are a couple questions that I'm seeing here come up. Trying to see if those have been answered or not. One of them is and anybody can chime in on this one. As the role of AI and ML is becoming increasingly prominent in life sciences, we all know several sessions early on, and I know that there are going to be a couple additional tomorrow on the topic. But how can organizations leverage these technologies to not just align HCP and DTC engagement, but also to personalize interactions for better results? I know, Drew, you touched on it a little bit on it, but anybody want to chime in on this one?
I can take it, Jay. I think
Yeah.
that the key for AI and ML, especially in terms of personalization, is related to some of our website activity that we do at Regeneron, where we're able to capture anonymous behavior and be able to kind of drive it through an AI and ML engine to personalize and identify preferences. That ties back to segmentation, to be able to say, hey, how can we personalize either through non-personal channels or through personal channels? So that is a key, easy to achieve way of being able to reach our end customers and personalize their experiences from a technology perspective.
I think that's a great example, and maybe to extrapolate a bit, I would say one of our biggest areas of investment from an AI and ML perspective is in the predictive models that we, for the most part, develop in-house with in-house data scientists that like I mentioned before, are increasingly those insights, those triggers, those alerts that come from those predictive models are increasingly the things that are driving our campaign activation, as opposed to a much more static type of campaign that's predefined well in advance with the fixed target list and the fixed content cadence. So I think that there continues to be huge application there. I think that the generative AI area is all the buzz right over the last year, and that's an area that I still haven't seen a tangible, practical output in pharma, but I think everyone is starting to play around with it from kind of a sandbox and testing perspective. Personally, I think there's huge application there from a content creation standpoint. We have some internal tools that we're starting to test out, and just the ability to create things from whether it's email subject lines, call to actions, creating copy, creating content, using those generative AI tools to support it from a speed perspective is, I think, dramatically it's going to completely change the landscape of how content gets created and the speed in which it can be done. But I see all of those things still very much in kind of pilot and internal, let's call it internal skunkworks operations at this point. But excited to see them come to fruition over the next probably 6 to 12 months. I think we'll start to see some things actually tangibly impacting businesses and out in the wild.
I'd like to add to that as well, that I see there's two big areas, right? One is the internal operations and how we create and generate content. I think the challenge is that on the external perspective, yeah, you could use AI and so forth, and we're all using that to some extent to be better informed and personalize messages. But we've got to stop with this proliferation, right? I think the AI, the key about AI should be that what is the minimum amount of messages that I need to send to my target audience? Because anything above the minimum is just noise or wasted effort internally to create that. I think that's the big challenge, because if we're all out there saying, hey, we can all personalize things better and overwhelm what's going on now, so everybody's just being overwhelmed, right? And what percent of that stuff is not even getting there anyway? And if it all becomes noise, then none of it's effective.
Yeah.
But I think externally, we got to figure out what is the minimum required, then how does that feed internally? Otherwise, we're going to keep on needing bigger pipes internally to get all that stuff done.
Yeah. Well, that's a great way to put it. So one other question that has popped up seems to be around privacy. Let me just go through it. So look at the pitfalls and challenges. So this is probably a question for all of you. What are the potential risks, and that organizations should be cautious of when aligning HCP and DTC engagement efforts? And what can an organization do to proactively address these challenges? I know you all talked about a little bit about the challenges, that it's a journey, it's not overnight. But if you have to list 2 or 3, what would be, in your opinion, things to watch out for when you're looking at more consolidated, coordinated efforts between HCP, DTC teams?
I mean,
I can think. Go ahead, Brian. So, I think there are 2 aspects to it. One is defining the architecture right, to ensure that we have the appropriate separation between commercial interests and medical interests and patient interests, right? That is something that's critical from an architecture and business process perspective. Beyond that, it's more about establishing clear use cases where you're going to have patient data and HCP data being leveraged for a particular use case. Getting that in front of data privacy teams early in the cycle and taking them along would be critical for success. So those would be the 2 things that I would say.
Yeah, I'll double down on the privacy piece. And the only way, any of these marketing tactics work and drive the desired impact, which is hopefully to make a connection with a customer and provide relevant information that ultimately leads to a better healthcare decision. The only way that works is if there's a level of trust. And if that trust is abused because people feel like their privacy has been compromised, then you've lost that customer, you've lost that relationship. So trust needs to be paramount, and that's where I think it's so crucial to ensure that the partners you're working with and the approaches you're taking are privacy safe, right? So and I think some of the ways that we tackle that is there's some really exciting partners and technologies out there that can tell us, hey, we know that someone has been exposed to your patient marketing. We don't know who that person is, and we don't want to know who that person is, right? But we know someone has been exposed to it, and we know the identifier of the healthcare professional that's treating that person, and we can use that insight to now be much more relevant in how we're communicating with that healthcare professional, right? So that's respecting the privacy of the individual that was engaging with our patient marketing. We don't know who that person is, but now we can also be much more timely and relevant to the healthcare professional, because we know that healthcare professional is seeing a relevant patient to one of our products. So I think that privacy piece is key. I think the other challenge, which I think we all face, is we all operate in a world where the budgets are kind of zero sum, right? So a brand budget in many cases is divvied up across the patient marketing team and the HCP marketing team and the like. And it comes back, Drew mentioned this earlier, it comes back to making sure that the collective group is aligned on the strategic imperatives, and that we're putting resources towards the things that are going to have the biggest impact. And There may be a quarter where, you know, the thing that's going to have the biggest impact is a patient marketing effort, but more of the available budget sits on the HCP team. How can you have that conversation in an open, honest, transparent way, ensure that incentives are aligned, and make the right decision to shift those resources where they're going to have the biggest impact? So I think that's a challenge. There's no, you know, silver bullet to address it, other than making sure there's full transparency, honesty, and collaboration through the process, and looking at it like, hey, here's a pool of resources to enable the customer impact we're trying to enable and the business impact we're trying to enable, and let your decisions be guided by, you know, the evidence and the objective inputs that say this is what's going to have the biggest impact.
Yeah. Drew, anything from you? Otherwise, I have a last question that I can take. So this is again from emerging technologies and trend standpoint. I know it's social, everybody's still trying to figure out from a pharma perspective, what can you put on TikTok or what can you not, and so on and so forth, right? So are there any trends and technologies, emerging technologies, especially in this area of HCP and DTC engagement side, that you think that is going to be top or should be top of mind, can change the world?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's just one in particular, but as we as our ability to measure across multiple channels, digital channels, becomes better, the cumulative effect, we understand. And I think Brian was even talking to earlier in terms of the percentage that they're seeing increasing, right? So I think it's a cumulative effect, and then that will provide input as to where we direct our investments, right? We still have a benchmark that the individual sales reps are probably the biggest return, but you know, a cumulative effect. I think the more data we have, the more insights we generate, then that'll direct our investments. But again, I'll go back to say we should all be doing less, better.
True.
Not simple. More, less, better.
We need to do simple things better. Yes, execute. So good. So guys, thank you so much for your time, taking the time out this afternoon, and for this engaging discussion. I mean, as we know, it's a journey. Not everything is in black and white and can be answered. So I would encourage the audience to continue this conversation. And we have these experience zones, so you should go visit one of those. And I'm asking Drew, Brian, Anand also during these experience sessions to pop in and see what conversations are happening and what questions are relevant. Maybe there will be some answers. And then for those who are just building their capabilities and answering those type of questions, maybe there's going to be something that you can take back to your organization, to your team, for your big idea conversation and discuss those. So thank you so much, Anand, Drew, and Brian, for your time. Appreciate your time, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.